Hey everybody. Hi, I think we've started. Evening. Must be Saturday, because here we are. Saturday streaming. Ready to go again.
Get all our technical gear right.
Yeah, make sure we've got our computer working. Trying some new technology this week. Ducks have got their feet paddling under the water really quickly. Oh, there we are. Hi, Chloe.
Good, good.
Well, say good day if you're out there. It'd be nice to hear your voice. Make sure the technology's working okay. Just play here. Phonograph Jack. Phonograph Jack. Saturday streaming number 15. Our 15th Saturday of these 90-minute shows, there or thereabouts. And this one here is our latest repertoire, Phonograph Jack. If you're a little further away from us and you'd like to know where we are, we're in Millthorpe and we're facing east. A nice big painting of Mr. John Dengate behind you, and then over there 250 kilometres down the hill to Sydney and off to the north and south. We're in Wiradjuri country here. For the Aboriginal peoples, Wiradjuri country known as the land of the three rivers. So we've got the Wombool, the Macquarie, the Lachlan, the Kalare, and the Murrumbidgee. So it's a very big part of the middle of New South Wales, and we love it here. We wouldn't live anywhere else. It's, and we've got some lovely spring weather at the moment too. Even got to go for a drive today. That was different. Really, the country's looking amazing. Really good.
Jumping out of its skin.
Yeah.
We'll be singing Wet Season Blues in a few months, I'm sure.
The original idea for this show came up about 19 years ago, and we had a remarkable weekend at one of the Jamboree festivals in 2001 in the little youth hall there. Rob Willis had gathered an extraordinary cast of bush musicians with huge repertoires, and so we're talking here about Bill Case and Eileen McCoy, Carrie Milliner, Frank Drinkwater was there, and then the other players like Alan Musgrove was around, and Bob McGuinness, and the Sharing the Harvest concert was sort of the highlight of a very long weekend of great music and friendship and learning for us especially. And those remarkable players all came from different parts of the world, or Australia anyway, and they all had their own repertoires and their own history as performers, but very quickly it was obvious to us that amongst those very strong characters, Bill Case was the leader of the band. He was our first candidate for Phonograph Jack. So yes, this first song we're going to sing is Phonograph Jack. It's got a tune that we've adapted from one of Bill's tunes. Bill's a great button accordion player amongst all his other talents. Yarn spinning, boy. But especially remarkable button accordion player. And this is a tune of his that we've used to accompany a poem that comes from Jim Graham. That was his pen name. His real name was Jim Gordon. And if you've seen any of our Henry Lawson shows, you'll have heard us talk about Jim Gordon. Jim was Henry's mate. I think Henry's best mate in a lot of ways. And in fact, Henry gave him the pen name Jim Graham. He said, put the E on the end, Jim Graham, that'll work for you. And as soon as we sort of saw this poem, a lot of things that we've been thinking about for the last 19 years sort of came together. So here's Bill's tune. Sharing the Harvest was really an idea that was meant as a sort of a celebration and a dedication to John Meredith, the late John Meredith. John would have turned 100 this year, so we'll make everything tonight we do for John. John was the great-grandfather of collecting Australian music, and in a lot of ways that's what tonight's all about. So this is for John and Phonograph Jack. Here we got lots of people say hello, guys. Nice to see you. As I say, if you've just joined, we've got a little bit of new technology going tonight, hopefully streaming out there nicely for you. Say g'day. It makes us feel better.
Yes, please.
Less alone here in the studio. All right, Phonograph Jack.
Across the plains and over the hills, with a little box on his back, where there a sugar bear, and his battered old piping phonograph is packed on top of his swag. He's known to the men of the unfenced lands, to the women who live out west, where the rivers spill in a big lagoon, and the pelican builds her nest, and news goes round by mulga wire to homes that are far and near. We're having a bit of a spread tonight. Oh, phonograph Jack is here. There's ever a meal and a bed for him at the end of a long day's tramp. If there's not a house for a score of miles, for he knows where the Bullocks camp, and the teamsters listen with never a word as the name of the tune he tells. Then his music blends with the curlew's cry and the low ding-dong of the bells. They listen sad-eyed to old home, sweet home, for years in the bush alone. And memories waken and thoughts fly back with the strains of that dear old song. There'll be hammocks swinging from a wheel to wheel, but one hanging high at the back, with the net well spread from the foot to the head, is ready for phonograph Jack.
So we call that Bill Case's Dream, that tune. Bill called it my dream, funnily enough. And it was his dream. He dreamt that tune when he was a young fella. He dreamt the tune in the night and then taught himself to play the button accordion by working out the tune that he'd heard in his dream. What a lovely story it is. But then he played it for the rest of his life, and by the time we heard Bill play it,
was highly decorated.
Very decorated, yes. So what an amazing story. This fella's got a phonograph in his swag and he's walking around. He's basically like a kind of a party in a box, and he knows where everyone is, and he turns up. And so the obvious question that we asked the minute we saw this poem, what's the question? What's he carrying? What records has he got?
So he can't carry too much.
No.
But he knows he's got to do these different venues, right? There's the parties at the houses, and then there's on the riverbank in the quiet with the Bullocks. So what does he need? We know one of them. We're told he's got Home Sweet Home. And that, of course, would have been the perennial hit, wouldn't it? You're out on the track. Odds are just about everybody has got a home in their mind that's far away.
Very, very itinerant and kind of moving sort of people he would have been dealing with at that time, just moving around the bush. Like all those songs of sailing at sea just translated to the life in the bush and carrying your swag as So the best of all the Tucker tracks, as they say, and I'm sure Home Sweet Home brought a tear. But what else is he carrying? Now, the thing that we thought then is, well, what are we carrying? I mean, we do the same thing, and we carry around big repertoires in our head, and we know that Bill, and we know that people have different repertoires for different settings. So I imagine Phonograph Jack has got a different repertoire for the riverbank, and out on the clay pan he's got some good ones. The big hall, then he'd probably stretch out a few, and some in the homestead, of course, some a little bit posher, up in the parlour music and so forth. A lot of it, that music that he played, and the people that were playing music around then, not on a phonograph, but real players, they tell me that music is dead, and in a lot of ways it is. Certainly the way it was played just doesn't happen a lot anymore. There's more people playing Australian tunes than ever before, but we all play them in a slightly different way now than the old social way it used to be played. And we realised around about then, when we were kicking off and playing all this music, that we had a lot of older fans and they weren't going to last forever. When we first started playing, the people we played for knew how to dance a Vasa Vienna. They knew well enough to call it an arse over ender, in fact. They knew the words of the old songs, and they knew about mazurkas, the old music. So, but now when we play for an older audience, the older people are just as likely to have grown up on Led Zeppelin or the Grateful Dead, which is, just a change that's gone on. So it makes us wonder about, well, what do we keep? What's worth keeping? What's worth hanging on to from the older days? And what's worth letting go from those times? And I guess the idea is not just what songs to keep, but what ideas to keep from those times. What if that music is dying? Maybe that culture is changing very quickly too. And so what's of value here? What are we keeping? We're going to start this next piece with another tune from Bill. It's a tune called Hilarity. But this one we actually learnt from Bob McGuinness.
We did. We were doing a gig with Wonga Willie, I believe, and Bob came over and said, "Do you know this one?" and played it for me. It's such a good tune. It's called Hilarity. It's hard to argue with. If you're going to travel the country, you better take a little bit of joy with you, I reckon. And Hilarity might be just what you need to have in your swag. And we're going to follow that with a poem by the great Anon. It's a poem called Diggins-Oh, and it's talking about the goldfields and how hard it was for this particular fella to manage. Not everybody, came out here and took to it like a duck to water. Some people really struggled, and that's part of the story too.
Kathy, there is absolutely nothing wrong with growing up with Led Zeppelin. I don't even need to say that, do I? I mean, we obviously grew up with Led Zeppelin and Grateful Dead.
Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
You were lucky. Yeah.
Yes.
I was brought up on the Carpenters and John Denver.
You don't need to talk about that,
I'm
Chloe.
sorry.
No, all of that's in there, of course. So we started playing this traditional music, but we play all kinds of music and grew up with, and those who are listening carefully will hear that kind of music, rock and roll, all coming out all over the place with us. Yeah, the songs from a dusty old book. It's the Great Anon. The best candidate for Phonograph Jack is the Great Anon for sure.
But the other one, so we've set this one to a tune, but we've borrowed for our gaps and our sort of feel from a tune from Alan Musgrove, collected from a fellow called Joe Hilder, and Alan just called this Joe Hilder's tune, and it's marvellous. You can hear it's Eastern European of some sort, possibly Italian. Sounds pretty Italian, and it's strange and disjointed and wonderful because of it. And there's a phrase, the gold in the cracks. So in this case. Is it a Chinese tradition? I think it is.
Japanese.
Japanese? Okay.
Mostly, I believe, yeah. So, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. The name might even come to me. Kintsugi, I think. But anyway, the idea is when something is cracked and repair it with gold, and the cracks become the joy. And a lot of the music we play, and to be honest, a lot of the culture that's come from that 19th century white fella Australian culture is if we're going to get on with life, then we're looking for the gold in the cracks, because there are some cracks.
And it's what you see in the cracks that's actually distinctly Australian too. The the local history that they carry with them is how the tunes have changed, how the songs have changed to fit the landscape.
So we'll do one for the Carpenters, Dallas, just for you. Okay.
Diggins-Oh, and I wish I'd never gone to the Diggins-Oh. Believe me, 'tis no fun. I once weighed 15 stone, but they brought me down to one at the Diggins-Oh. I thought a good home could be found at the Diggins-Oh, but soon I found I got aground at the Diggins-Oh. The natives came one day, burnt my cottage down like hay, and with my wife they ran away to the Diggins-Oh. I built a hut with mud at the Diggins-Oh, and that got washed away by flood at the Diggins-Oh. I used to dig and cry, it wouldn't do to die. Undertakers charged too high at the Diggins-Oh. Potatoes, half a crown at the Diggins-Oh. Sprats 5 shillings a dish. If for Dutch place you wish, $2 will buy that fish at the Diggins-Oh. A crown a pound for steaks at the Diggins-Oh, and ditto chomps in no great shapes at the Diggins-Oh. 5 hog a small pig's cheek. If for herring red you seek, well, one will keep you dry a week at the Diggins-Oh. Table bin, 2 bob a quart at the Diggins-Oh. You can get your eyes gouged out for naught at the Diggins-Oh. 5 shillings a 4-pound brick, butter a shilling a lick. They never give no tick at the Diggins-Oh. nuggets they made free at the Diggins-Oh. I escaped from bodily hurt, though they stole me very shirt. I had to paint myself with dirt at the Diggins-Oh. I felt quite a ruined man at the Diggins-Oh. Thinks I'll get home if I can from the Diggins-Oh. I was always catching cold. I've been both bought and sold, like many more for gold at the Diggins-Oh. But now I am safe returned from the Diggins-Oh. And nevermore I mean to roam to the Diggins-Oh. Some people's fortune mends, much on the man depends. I'd sooner be here with my friends than at the Diggins-Oh.
Joe Hilder's tune. We looked for years and years and years, and yes, you could call that a slightly broken tune, and yes, but we love it. And a lot of what we play seems just that little bit sort of broken and a little bit, all the music we play was born here, and rarely is there an antecedent in an old country. If there is, it's in earlier and lesser form. That's a joke. But when we think of this music of the 19th century in Australia, mostly the 19th century, but traditional music, we wonder what's worth keeping, and we should be kind of thinking of letting go. And the idea is that there's a lot worth keeping, and it's kind of in danger of being forgotten, I think, in the rush. Not amongst some of the great crowd we've got tonight. Christina's here, and she says, this bit does sound like Southern Italian music. Yeah, I agree, Christina. I agree, absolutely. Speaking of gold, out here in this country, before the gold rush, there was a couple of generations of people who lived, well, they used to call it beyond the limits of location, from here and a little bit further west. And basically what it meant is there was some ticket of leave men, some convicts, some ex-convicts, some children of convicts, and some fairly poor free settlers, no fences, no sheep, just running steers, and basically I sort of get the idea that the displacement of the Wiradjuri people from this country and the Aboriginal people further north and west is, well, we know that there's a horrific story there, but in the cracks of that story there's some gold. And the fact is that those people had some agency in their lives for the first time, possibly ever. The colony would have starved without the beef they were growing, but they were kind of running their own show, and just for 20, 30 years, that's all it was. And I like to think of that time as a very happy time for those people. You can only imagine what that freedom felt like. But the gold rush ended that. The gold rush started the sort of re-Britishing of Australian society that was only to continue through the Victorian era. But as soon as there's wealth in the country, then we've got people, the long arm of British, and I put it in quotes, justice, brutal as it may have been, was coming to reclaim those people and to reclaim that country. At the same time, the fencers were coming, the bigger landholders and sheep. So that was the change that was going on. Any wonder some of them took to the road? Hundreds of them, I would have thought, but many famous, you know, like Ben Hall and Frank Gardner, of course, the most successful bushranger. But this story from Henry Lawson could stand for any one of hundreds and hundreds of young men and women who are in that situation. And I think in this story there's an idea of hope. And of course the bushrangers were living on hope, running on hope. Whether they had political motives or just trying to make a few bucks or looking for the excitement of the game. I wonder if, given that this poem was written by Henry Lawson and Phonograph Jack itself was written by his best mate Jim Gordon, I can only think Jim would have known this story.
As usual, in Lawson's marvellous way, he sees every side. He sees every side of the conversation and of the story, and he understands what the bet is that everyone's got on the outcome. He knows what every individual has invested. By the time you get to the end, you understand it well.
Yeah, so thanks for this one, Henry. And these stories are worth keeping.
I think if you were listening to Phonograph's recordings, you'd like to find something of yourself in there, wouldn't you?
You would.
One day, old Trooper Campbell rode out to Blackman's Run. His cap peak and his sabre glancing in the sun. It was New Year's Eve, and slowly across the ridges low, the sad old year was drifting to where the old years go. The trooper's mind was reading the love page of his life, his love for Mary Wiley ere she was Blackman's wife, and his sorrow for the sorrows of the harder rival one, for he knew that there was trouble out there on Blackman's Run. The sapling shades had lengthened, the summer day was late, when Blackman met the trooper beyond the homestead gate. And if the hand of trouble could leave a lasting trace, then lines of care had come to stay on Trooper Campbell's face. Not good day, Trooper Campbell, it's a bad, bad day for me. You are of all the men on earth the one I wish to see. The great black clouds of trouble over our homestead hang. That wild and reckless boy of mine has joined McDermott's gang. Oh, save him, Campbell, I beg in friendship's name. For if they take and hang him, the wife would die ashamed. Could Mary or her sisters hold up their heads again and face a woman's malice or claim the love of men? Ah, but if he does a murder, 'twere better we were dead. Don't take him, Trooper Campbell, if a price be on his head. Ah, but shoot him, Campbell, if you see him face to face, and save him from the gallows and us from that disgrace. Now, Tom, cried Trooper Campbell, you know your words are wild. Though he is wild and reckless, yet still he is your child. So bear up in your trouble, meet it like a man, and tell the wife and daughters I'll save him if I can. night brings darkest shadows to hearts that cannot rest. Blackman's wife sat rocking and moaning in her chair. I cannot bear disgrace, she moaned. Disgrace I cannot bear. Oh, God in heaven, pardon, I'm selfish in my woe. My boy is better-hearted than many that I know, and I will face the world's disgrace till his mother's dead. My foolish child shall find a place to lay his outlawed head. Trooper Campbell rode back from Blackman's Run. No notice aught about him till 13 miles were done. And close beside a cutting, he heard the click of locks, and he saw the rifle muzzles were on him from the rocks. Suddenly a youth rode out and close by Campbell's side. But don't fire in heaven's name, it's Campbell, boys, he cried. And one by one in silence, the levelled rifles fell. For who'd shoot Trooper Campbell of those who knew him well? Bravely sat old Campbell, no sign of fear showed he. He slowly drew his carbine, it rested by his knee. And the outlaws' guns were lifted, none the silence broke, till steadfastly and firmly old Trooper Campbell spoke. That boy that you would ruin goes home with me, my men, or some of us shall never ride through the gap again. Now you know old Trooper Campbell, have you ever heard that bluff or lead could turn him, that ere he broke his word? That reckless lad is playing a heartless villain's part. He knows that he is breaking his poor old mother's heart. He'll bring a curse upon himself, but it is not that alone. He'll bring dishonor to a name that I'd be proud to own. Now I speak to you, McDermott, if your heart's not hardened quite. For if you'd seen the trouble at Blackman's home this night, well, you'd help me now, McDermott. I speak as man to man. I swore to save that foolish lad, and I'll save him if I can. I'll take him, said McDermott. He's got a horse to ride. The youngster thought a moment and rode to Campbell's side. Goodbye, the outlaws shouted as up the range they sped. Merry New Year, Campbell, was all McDermott said. Then fast along the ridges, two bushmen rode a race, and the moonlight lent a glory to Trooper Campbell's face. Ere the new year's dawning, he reached the home at last, and this is but a story of trouble that is past.
So, who says Henry Lawson can't give you a happy ending? Henry wrote that in 1891, when life was not particularly good for Henry, but it did give you a fantastic ending on that song. Really wonderful yarn, fantastic yarn that he wrote. And there's hope. Hope is the answer there. Well, it's interesting to play this next song. It's probably one of the oldest Australian songs we know. It's one of those songs you'll know, but it's that same old story about Pop's had the same axe his whole life, changed the handle 7 times and the head 6, but same axe. Folk songs are kind of like that. Change the words, change the melody, same song. What's most interesting about this song for me is that most versions involve gold, but this version just seems to go back before gold. It doesn't mention gold at all. And what strikes me is in this song is what I've always loved about this song. I've loved it since I was a kid. A lot of the words in here come from my own kind of dredging up on my memory as being young. And so hearing this song all over the place is how quickly those free settlers and the working Australians found a home, and how that home was an itinerant home for many. Swag on the shoulder. It was very quickly. I can't help but again mention that they weren't coming into an empty country, that this country they were walking with their swag on their shoulder had been walked by Aboriginal people for tens of thousands of years. So it's tempting to think of how much of an influence that was. I'm
yes,
sure,
if you were smart, I guess you picked up some clues, didn't you?
I mean, right down to the fact that we will just never know how many Australians carry, are the offspring of Aboriginal and white people from that time. We just will never know how much, but certainly culturally there does seem to be a huge influence. These were the people who landed, and within a year or two seemed to be calling this home. The Tories of the day, leading into the Victorian era and right through to today, you might argue, certainly into the 20th century, would refer to home as England, but the working men seem to think of this as home very quickly. And a lot of the politics that came, and all of the Republican ideas, all come from that idea of we've found a new home here. And I think a lot of that was to do with freedom and that idea that for the first time in maybe ever, or certainly in generations, they had some agency in their own life. So, here's The Lad from Erin's Isle.
Swag on my shoulder, Billy can in my hand. I'll tramp the bush of Australia, a true-born Irishman. When first I came to Sydney, the girls and me did smile, saying one and to the other, here's a lad from Erin's Isle. Well, I went down to a public house to spend an hour or two. The daughter of the landlady, she fell in love with me.
Oh daughter dear, oh daughter, what do you mean to do? To fall in love with an Irishman, a man you hardly knew.
Hold your tongue, dear mother, I'll do the best I can.
I'll tramp the bush of Australia with my true-born Irishman.
With my swag on my shoulder, Billy can in my hand, I'll tramp the bush of Australia
With my
true-born Irishman. So around the lighthouse now I tramp, nor leave it out of sight. Swag goes on my left shoulder, then I take it on me right. It's then I take it off me back, and often upon it I lie. It's the best of all the tucker tracks, and upon it I should die.
We came up with that tune to put on the end of that song. We call it Around the Lighthouse, and just, again, using melodies to express how we feel about the song. It's always been one of my favourites, and I think it is because of that sense of home. Yes, gold. It really did change the country, and while it brought people from all over the world very quickly, it also was the spark of the kind of the Victorian era, and that, you know, lots of people I've read, including Tim Flannery and others, have talked about how Australia was a very different place before and after the Victorian era. That the Englishness, the Britishness of Australia had watered down to almost non-existent. But then by the 1900 it was back and in force. Especially Sydney and the colony around New South Wales had, like I say, the long arm of British justice had stretched to reclaim the country and raise the Union Jack again, where often had been, well, famously down in Victoria, it was the new flag, the flag of blue and silver stars. Peter Lalor down there led the rebellion. They had a different view about what Australia might look like, and they had the Eureka Rebellion and the oath: we swear by the Southern Cross to stand truly by each other and fight to defend our rights and liberties. Hear. But this song and poem we're about to do, or the poem that starts it, is not actually about Peter Lalor. It's about his grandson, and all I'll say about that is that you'll see, I think, that Mark Twain quote that history might not repeat, but it does rhyme, and how easy it was, seemingly, to turn that spirit of freedom and a kind of new Republican idea, how easy it was to lead people to the Great War. And we'll go straight from this poem. This poem's written by Dennis Kevins, and we'll go straight into a song that we've come up with. We've written the melody, but the poem...
The poem was a marvellous find by Mark Gregory, who found it in Trove. It was published back in 1924, and it was published in a few different newspapers, Queensland and Adelaide. It was picked up shortly after... well, the date says a lot. 15th of November 1924, so it was all about remembrance. And this is a song written by a girl, Mary, she was only a young teenager during the First World War. She had a brother who went to war but who came back. But she worked with the Red Cross, and that was an experience of her life. So here she is, 10 years later, writing this poem in remembrance. And some songs, while they, maybe you don't want to think about them, these are important lessons to carry with us.
I think Phonograph Jack would never have let these slip out of his repertoire. If I know him as well as I think I do, he would have these songs, and we must never forget these kinds of poems and songs, even if the day comes where we don't feel like we don't need to sing them anymore. We should still sing them as a reminder, I think.
Yeah, as an inoculation.
Mm. Captain Lalor, haven't you lost your way? What are you doing here? 400 yards from the peak of Chunuk Bear. Peter Lawler's sword by your side, your grandfather's pride. But what are you doing here? 400 yards from the peak of Chunuk Bear. 26th of April 1915. Far from your farm in Victoria so green, oh Captain Lalor, haven't you lost your way? Oh, what are you doing here? Your eyes filming, your fingers unlacing from the handle of Peter Lawler's sword, so carefully balanced and restored. You spend cartridges all around, your four mates lying without a sound. Oh, Captain Lalor, oh, what are you doing here? 400 yards from the peak of Chunuk Bear.
Today since last the guns took their red toll on Flanders soil. 6 years since brute in human form, tall spire and meadow did despoil. And 6 years dead the war's red light, yet still I hear guns at night. 9 years today we said goodbye, with jesting word from heavy heart, and smiling lips that hid the pain, and hands that clung, then fell. 9 years today we laughed at fate, but still I hear him at the gate. Since he fell, they say he dropped in no man's land. In onward rush, intent to kill, his soldier's weapon in his hand. 8 years ago, I lost my all, but all my life I see him.
I don't think Phonograph Jack, or the Phonograph Jack I know, wouldn't have let a piece like that go. Hey, it might be time for me to say how the Saturday streamings work in terms of finances. They are free concerts. This is our 15th now. They're all on YouTube. I know a couple of people have asked the question, can you see the past ones? Yeah, you can. Go and check them out on YouTube. They're all there, you know, little wobbly bits and all. They're all up there, an hour and a half each week, all different themes. And if you've got any questions or queries, we love to get into the
Yes,
investigations.
those conversations are never old.
Yeah. Free concerts, but we really do hope for and encourage a bit to throw in the hat. So if you want to donate, our website, I've thrown our website link in the comments there, which is about as organised as we've ever been.
Yeah, we managed that this week.
Yeah, there is a donate button on the front of the website, and we appreciate all the help. It's not great times to be doing our job. This has been our job for 20 years, 25 years now, and it's all kind of disappeared on us. Hopefully we're into a state where we're coming back, but you know, it's interesting times. May you live in interesting times, they say. Look, we've got a spiritual home in our mind for Phonograph Jack. I spent a lot of my life growing up around the Hilarity River, the Lachlan River, or enough for it to feel like home. And just outside of Forbes, near the Lachlan, there's an old homestead and a remarkable place called Carrawabity. And I reckon Phonograph Jack, to my mind, has done gigs in the homestead, but also down on the riverbank, on the flats, you know. So that's where he is. And you can't play that close to Parks, which is just up the road, without featuring possibly the best Phonograph Jack of all, Sally Sloane. Sally was born in 1892, little Sally Frost. In fact, the midwife at Sally's birth was Ben Hall's sister-in-law. So she's very much the kind of person we're talking about here. And she was, a lot of you all know Sally's work, one of our best singers ever, a remarkable repertoire of songs, some homegrown Australian songs from way back, and some Irish songs that she picked up from within the family, but also she mentioned quite a lot of railway workers, lots of Irish influence, but a lot of Australian songs as well. She sang unaccompanied. Almost everything we sing comes from unaccompanied singers. But she could also play a dance tune on just about any instrument you could give her. So she played harmonica, accordion, harmonica, fiddle, banjo, just
you name it.
You name it.
Yeah.
So when we talk about what we might like to remember from the 19th century and this music and maybe our culture and our ideas, one of the things we'd like to forget is the I think that the early days of the Bush Music Club and so forth, when the revival was first kicking off, and thank goodness it did, one of the things that happened that I'm a bit sad about is that bush music got a bit of a kind of a blokey image, and we've been kind of rallying against that idea since we first started playing. That's something we could do without, because from our experience, a lot of the very big repertoire of songs and great dance tunes was in the heads of the women, and Sally's probably the best of the bunch. Some of the songs folk music is work music, right? So a lot of the songs Sally could only remember if she was washing up. So she could remember a song and then she'd start washing up, and you'd hear the suds and the dishes, and you can picture it, and then all of a sudden the songs are flowing again for John Meredith and Warren and Warren Fay and Jacko and the other people that visited Sally. Now, this is a warning tale that Sally's picked up. It's not a rare song around the world, but Sally's version I think is terrific. And so a song from Sally, which is another warning tale from Phonograph Jack, and a tune on the end of this set called Sporting Paddy, but it's not the Irish Sporting Paddy. This one has been panel beaten remarkably to be a very Lachlan River kind of a song. So here we are at Carrawabity with a set from Sally Sloane. A little tune in the middle that we use called Bells and Bullocks that came from Bob Rummery, another Phonograph Jack of note.
Yes, indeed. Yes, look up that one. That one's there on YouTube. The whole Bob
We
Rummery
did a
hour
whole
and
night for Bob Rummery, yeah. And we hope to do a night for Sally at some point. But anyway, this will do for now. The wee one. Sing along if you like.
falsely deceives me and leaves me a wee one that ne'er is my own. Oh dear, oh, the day I got married, I wish I was single again.
With its weeping and wailing and rocking the cradle,
and nursing a wee one that ne'er is my own. While I'm at work, my wife's on the rantan with some other young man. She goes out and she leaves me, falsely deceives me, and leaves me a wee one that ne'er was my own. Oh dear, oh, the day I got married,
I wish I was single again. With a weeping and wailing and rocking the cradle, and nursing a wee one
that ne'er is my own. All you young men that's fond of the lasses, take my advice, leave those flash girls alone. For by the Lord Harry, if one you should marry, she'll bring you a wee one that ne'er is your own. Oh dear, oh, the day I got married,
I wish I was single
again,
with my weeping and wailing and rocking the cradle,
and nursing a wee one that ne'er is my own, and nursing a wee one that ne'er is my own.
time Sally had finished panel beating that one, it sounded more like the Easy Beats to me than an Irish tune, but that's kind of why I love it, you know. I've got a piece now that we're going to do that comes from Barcroft Broke, and Barcroft Boke, I should say. Good name, isn't it? Barcroft Boke. Yeah. And it's got also a little song in there that we found, a bit of an anonymous verse about crows that you'll hear in the middle. The music is ours, it's a poem. Adam Lindsay Gordon, Jack Sorensen, a little bit later on. Henry Lawson himself attempted suicide. The first two committed suicide. Henry attempted to commit suicide at least 2 or 3 times, it seems, and spoke about it openly. And Barcroft did commit suicide as well. So I guess in amongst what we're getting at with this piece is that that job of the poet in the Victorianising of Australia was hard, it was tough. The poets who wanted to speak about this place as home but saw the inequality raging, whereas there had been this, well, I don't think it's a myth, I think there had been the startings of an egalitarian fair go coming in this Western country. I will say yet again that we're not forgetting that it was there was a war going on, and the first Australians were suffering enormous dislocation and dispossession, and the people doing the dispossessing weren't strangers to it. So, but yes, it seems that as the Tories took hold and Australian society kind of headed towards federation, there was a huge gulf opening up between the haves and have-nots, and this poem's all about that and about how difficult it was. It's sort of our dedication to not just those people carrying their swags who didn't last, didn't survive, but as poets speaking truth to power, you know, the job of the fool, job of the poet.
Well, the job of the sensitive too.
Yeah, Phonograph Jack's job was not always easy, and this is sort of our acknowledgement of that. Very striking bit of verse it is. Out on the waste of the Neverdale, that's where the dead men lie. That's where the heat waves dance forever. That's where the dead men lie. That's where the earth's loved sons are keeping endless tryst. Not the west wind's sweeping feverish pinions can wake their sleep. Out where the dead men lie. Where brown summer and death have mated. That's where the dead men lie. Loving fiery lust unsated, that's where the dead men lie. Out where the grinning skulls bleach whitely, under the salt bush sparkling brightly. Out where the wild dogs chorus nightly, that's where the dead men lie. Deep in the yellow flowing river, that's where the dead men lie. Under the banks where the shadows quiver, that's where the dead men lie. Where the platypus twists and doubles, leaving a train of tiny bubbles, rid at last of their earthly troubles, that's where the dead men lie. And only the hand of night can free them, that's when the dead men fly. Only the frightened cattle see them, see the dead men go by. Cloven hooves beating out one measure, bidding the stockmen no leisure. That's when the dead men take their pleasure, that's when the dead men fly.
The crows kept flying up, boys, the crows kept flying up. The doggy seen and whimpered,
a sleeping drover, he sees a dead pass by. Hearing them call to their friends the plover, hearing the dead men cry, seeing their faces stealing, hearing their laughter pealing, watching their grey forms wheeling round where the cattle lie. Strangled by thirst and fierce privation, that's how the dead men die. Out on Moneygrub's farthest station, that's how the dead men die. There's hard-faced greybeards, youngsters callow, some mounds cared for, some left shallow, some deep down, yet others fallow, some having but the sky. Moneygrub, as he sips his claret, looks with complacent eye down at his watch chain, 18 carat, there in his club hard by. Recks not at every leaf is stamped with names of the men whose limbs are cramped with too long lying in grave mould, camped with death where the dead men lie. But we must remember the gold in the cracks. And we come now to a song written more recently, but very appropriate to the show, based around the idea of Phonograph Jack, about what we choose to keep and what we choose to let go. This is a Michael O'Rourke song. There's a new album out called I Lost the Best Feather in My Wing, and the title of the album comes from this song. It's a Michael's long passed away, unfortunately, but it's a rediscovered recording of Michael in a folk club in the 70s, and it's a fantastic album of Michael's. Yeah.
O'Rourke, wasn't sure if you said.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Okay. But did you want to say anything about this one, Chloe?
Oh, these are important songs. If you're gonna, collate songs, carry songs forward, you have to find these ones. I can imagine Phonograph Jack playing just the right song on the river and saving. You can save somebody. It's happened before. We've had people come up and say, "You saved me." A song can change your world, can change your mindset. And I can imagine this one pulling someone up by their bootstraps.
It's worked for me a couple of times, I've got to say.
And this has all become, we started this Phonograph Jack idea a year ago, more than a year ago, actually doing this show. We had the songs probably before that, some of them. But everything has taken on new significance with COVID and with the changing world.
Yes.
But the idea stands. So what do you carry? It's a chance to reconsider what you're carrying at the moment. Does it sound just as good? Does it still feel the same? Does it make your head hurt when you try to remember? Did you wear down your fingernails playing the game? Oh, the grass keeps on growing, the flowers still turn out when it comes round to spring. Oh, but that old rooster's crowing, I've lost the best feather in my wing. I come and listen a while and I'll tell you a tale. How a man on his hat and his heart on a nail. Or whatever you like, do you feel alright? Is there something inside you that makes your face pale? Oh, wherever you're going, there's nothing to fear, it don't mean anything. Oh, when that old rooster's crowing, I've lost the best feather in my head. Well, I woke up last night just to try the night air. Turned around to my bed, in my bed it was bare. Then I turned on the light just to get a good sight. When I turned round again, there was nobody there. Oh, the day is dawning, I've nowhere to go, I can't do anything. Oh, but that old rooster's crowing, I've lost the best feather in my wing. A glass of wine and company, that's my desire. On a cold winter's night, to have a good roaring fire, to see in reflections our different directions,
And string the bright images out on the wire.
There's no way of knowing what manner of guest or what thoughts they will bring. But you'll open the door anyway, the wind's blowing, and smile and ask them to
Michael O'Rourke. We've got time for one, maybe two more, I think.
What do you think?
Well, I think I'd like to do this one. We've talked a lot about the gold in the cracks. This is the Gulgong song, and Gulgong's, relatively speaking, in the internet terms, global terms, it's relatively speaking close to us. It's a place we've spent a lot of great nights with some of you and some others. And this is John Dengo showing us why it's wonderful to keep hold of tunes. Rosin the Bow turned into our great old song of rebellion and sedition in Australia, the Catalpa. So no one, well, a lot of people in this country, I hope, can hear this tune and have those resonances very strong and remember those as we sing the Gulgong song. We also play a couple of tunes from that area as well. Very big part of Phonograph Jack's repertoire is dance music. And how could you not hang on to a tune called The Jackarse Eat It on the Way?
And we know what he ate.
Yes, it took us years to find out. We had
See if anyone can guess.
All right. I'll see if anyone can guess what the Jackarse
What did the
ate.
Jackarse eat on the way?
We do know, it took us years, but we eventually found the song the dance tune's based on. And we do know, we had lots of guesses before we found out. And Chloe was right, actually.
I guessed right.
Yeah, she guessed right. But, we do have to...
It's just the worst thing I can think of.
So the Gulgong song. And the Jackarse. So Father, Hilder and Juina, their story shall always be told, and none can deny her allure and a place in the story of gold. But written in nuggets of pipe clay, home rule and Canadian lead, the glittering history of Gulgong is there for Australia to read. Oh, loud were the shouts and the laughter as diggers with joy unrestrained, they went paddling around in the gutters and picking up gold when it rained. But written in nuggets of pipe clay, home rule and Canadian lead, all the glittering history of Gulgong is there for Australia to read. It was glinting in clay and in gravel, gleaming in quartz and in love. God was the pillar of Gulgong, and Gardner was king of the road. But written in nuggets of pipe clay, home rule and Canadian lead, the glittering history of Gulgong is there for Australia to read. One for you, John. Days of the diggings, and then when our memories go dim, we'll take down the volumes of Lawson and share the last bottle with him. But written in nuggets of pipe clay, home rule and Canadian lead, all the glittering history of Gulgong is there for Australia to read. Guesses for what the Jackarse ate? Off to the new
Yes. John had the knack for using a tune, so he didn't just borrow it and play a song over it. He knew what the tune meant, he knew where it came from, and he knew what he was saying by using that tune. There's a wonderful depth of context there.
And if there was a John...
If he could only be blessed with an audience that really got it. Occasionally he did.
If I could have one phonograph jack for the rest of my life, it would be Mr. John Dengate, of course. Something about phonograph jack in my mind is that all-rounder. You could play, you could sing, you could tell you a yarn. We're going to finish with a song and a couple of tunes from Wren and Forbes.
Sure.
We're hoping our battery's going to last, and the new technology, I think, seems to have streamed it out there a little better. I'm hoping so. And I'm also hoping our battery lasts for this last little bit. Like I said earlier, our spiritual home for Phonograph Jack is Karrawobity. And when we think of Karrawobity, we think of the music and songs of Wren. This is a set of one song and 2 dance tunes from Ebb. Carrie Milliner sang this little waltz in the middle too. The waltz is called Only a Leaf of a Rosebud. Eileen McCoy played it. In fact, just about all of our phonograph jacks could have given you a version of this one.
Yeah.
But the Schottische on the end is very much Ebb's piece. It's an unusual and wonderful tune and a good way to end when we're thinking about what we hang on to, what we and what we let go. We mustn't forget that Phonograph Jack's first job is to remember beautiful things, and I think these are 3 beautiful things. And, oh, by the way, the Jackarse ate the wedding cake.
Isn't that terrible?
It's true. It's true. Thanks for joining us today. We'd love it if you'd chip in and donate through the website. That it is a free concert though, regardless of any intent to pay or ability to pay. We just hope you'll come and join in. If you can chip in a little bit helps a lot, and a lot helps enormously at the moment. Saturday streaming number 15, and I've really enjoyed myself tonight. I know we've got at least 3 or 4 more before we take a spell from these. We'll see how we go. Let us know what you think. I think the weekly format suits very well because people kind of just know it's on and gives us a structure to our week, but it does take a fair bit of our week as well. So, yeah, if you're all enjoying it, let us know.
Maybe we could keep going in a more spread out format or have seasons on and off.
Yeah, I'm thinking seasons. Take a spell and then come back and do some Saturdays, but I'm really enjoying them. I'm having a lot of fun, and it's kind of like the company we have when we're not having company. Here's a piece from Wren. Just about my favourite bit of music at the moment comes from Ebb. And if you ever get a chance to go and visit Karrawobity out there, just outside of Forbes, it is a fantastic place. Last time I checked, Ken and Monica were looking to sell, so maybe it's your dream. It is an amazing place, one of a kind.
Built in the 20s and 30s. Okay, so it's not your classic homestead looking place. Go and have a little look at it on the web. It's an intriguing looking house.
Okay, Dallas says good to know it's on every week. Thanks, Dallas. I do like the weekly format. It gives my week a sort of a structure. But yeah, we'll see how we go. So the old Fiddler, Only the Leaf of a Rosebud, and Ebb Schottische. This is for all you phonograph jacks out there. Lots watching tonight. Keep it alive. Knowing what to let go and what to hold on to. That's our job. So
and you are what you play, and you are what you carry.
And this stuff means the world to me.
An old grey-haired man sat a-playing with a fiddle tucked under his chin, and this is the song he was singing as he played on his old violin. Oh, my old fiddle and I, oh, my old fiddle and I, brings back memories of days gone by, till I lay down the shovel at home and I hang on just my old fiddle and I.
One more time, Paddy. Thanks for your company tonight, folks. Phonograph Jack, it'd be lovely. The idea of this show was, and we did it at Bulli, and the idea worked very well, and we were to have done it as the big Trocadero show at the National Folk Festival in 2020, and the stalled album was going to be launched, but the idea really was to ask a lot of questions, and that's how it worked at Bulli. Well, the lovely thing about the online format is you can throw your own ideas about what's worth keeping from this era of Australian music and this era of Australian culture, and what should we let go, what should we move on from, and keep putting the gold in the cracks. We know that we have to, that the repairs are often needed, always needed, that the fight's always on for a fairer society. I hate the trajectory of Australian society from the 1850s to 1900 in terms of the gulf of inequality. Well, hey, isn't that exactly what we're facing now?
Yeah.
And
we had Phil Lobel's Timeless Land in this set, but we haven't quite fitted it in too. So that idea of conservation too. What do you keep? Which aspects of our culture are causing damage and which ones aren't?
And in doing so, remembering that we live on Aboriginal land. That this is the first Australians. It always was Aboriginal land. It is Aboriginal land, and it always will be Aboriginal land. There's just no argument about that. It's the way it is, and if we hope to put the gold in the cracks, then we could start with some truth and reconciliation in that area, I would have thought. And looking after the country, most importantly at the moment, when we're not seeing each other very much, look after yourselves. Take care, and I hope to see you soon. In real life, if not, maybe next Saturday. We're going dipping our toe into the riderless horse in the First World War next week. but we'll talk about that online. Thanks, folks. See you later.
Right.